to start with, I see there are two kinds of agriculture in this world happening. One method of agriculture and one form of agriculture where the farmers are free, the farmers are happy, where there is no crisis as such. But there is another form of agriculture where there is a very deep agrarian crisis, where the farmers are committing suicides. In India, just for your information, every half an hour one farmer is committing suicide. Then there are a large number of farmers almost in every state of India, especially those states which are called the hinterland of Green Revolution. The farmers are in debt. 45 to 50% of farmers are in debt. And then, there is of course several other problems. They're not getting a good price, they're not getting good kind of advice. The extension system in agriculture has been closed down. But these are there. But there are a lot more problems which are going to come in the form of which Anya has in fact touched upon in her presentation in the first plenary. And one of them is the trade agreements. In fact, India is already, have signed around 6 or 7 trade agreements which are in operation. But there is a lot more trade agreements which are in the pipeline. And if you remember, most of the countries, about 164 countries around the world, are also member of WTO, including India. And we have seen the kind of problem Indian farming and farmers have faced because of the membership in WTO, because we are getting all kinds of foods and produce from outside India at very cheap price, which are competing with the Indian food products, and the Indian farmers are not getting a good price for that. And one of the reasons for farmer suicide is that they are not getting good remunerative price for their produce. So the new set of agreement which India is going to sign, one of them is called RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And this agreement is going to be signed with 15 other members. And who are those 15 countries? 10 of them are the ASEAN members. India already has a FTA with ASEAN countries. Then China, Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand. Today, whatever FTA we have signed, except one which is with Singapore, we are in trade deficit. We are not gaining anything out of that. And the trade deficit has really jumped 3 times, 4 times with all these countries. Despite that, our country and our government has decided to go ahead, and recently, in fact, if you remember in the last 2-3 days, the government have taken a firm decision that they are going to sign RCEP. Just to give you a little bit more information about how India is going to be affected by that. Today, we don't have an FTA with China. We don't have an FTA with Australia. Australia is trying hard I would say last 10 years. New Zealand is also trying hard last 10 years to sign an FTA with India because they want Indian market. China, we don't have an FTA, and whatever Chinese products come into India, they pay duty. Once we have an FTA with RCEP is signed, the duties on all the products, on almost 90% of all products, including agriculture and non-agriculture products, is going to be zero. And just imagine today, whatever all the doll industry, all the toys industry, the lock industry, the cycle industry, you can just name it. And all these have lost because of the import from China. Today, Indians are using the sari, which is a very traditional Indian dress. It's coming from China. We are using bindis. The women use bindis. It comes from China. Even the broom, which we use in our home to clean our home, that comes from China. Almost every product you see in the market, even our national flag on the 15th of August and 26th of January, when we celebrate our national day, the flag which you get on the local market or on the streets, that comes from China. Even the idols, each of our brothers and sisters, Hindu brothers and sisters, have their small temple in their house. That temple, the idol which is kept there, that comes from China. Just imagine, once we have this FTA, what will happen. And I have been to China, I have been to the Yunnan province, I have seen the kind of agriculture they are doing. They are growing in Yunnan alone, they are growing apple in 10,000 hectares, and each apple in each of the tree were wrapped with paper bags. So you can imagine the kind of labor force they have. And here, even in Ladakh, I have seen nobody wants to work in agriculture. Even in India, people want to quit agriculture. Every day, 2,000 people in India, 2,000 farmers are quitting agriculture. This is the only option left for them because they are not gaining anything. And once we have this FTA, we are going to be ruined completely. But there are some sections, they are trying to get benefit out of it. But there are other sectors who are also going to be largely impacted. One of them is going to be dairy. Because in India, almost every farm household have got 1 or 2 cattle. And they have their own dairy farm. They have and there are big cooperative dairy farms, like Amul is one of them. The Karnataka dairy farms is there. And these small, especially women, they collect the milk and they go to those collection centers, and that milk goes to the Amul dairy or some other dairy. In almost each state has got their own dairy cooperatives. Now these dairy cooperatives are going to be completely, finished once we get milk and dairy product from Australia and from New Zealand, because they're wanting Indian dairy market for a long time, and they have already established their presence in India. Because Lactalis, which is a European company, have already bought up 4 or 5 big dairy companies in India. The Fonterra, which is a New Zealand dairy company, they have already signed a joint venture with Big Bazaar. So they have already set up their shops in India. Now they only need zero duty entrance into Indian market. Oh my God. So the other threats which we are seeing today, and in fact there are some publication outside have kept it, in the form of the other kinds of food which are coming in, like the biofortification food. They are making little changes in those produced, for example, rice or banana or potato, and they are introducing little more, in nutrients, the iron or zinc or pro-vitamin A. For example, we have golden rice, which is already in the pipeline to be cleared, and Bangladesh is going to be clearing it soon. So those new kind of food are going to enter into a market, and is going to have the same reductionist mindset like we have seen in the Green Revolution time, where the focus was only on rice and wheat. Now the focus will shift to only those products which has got little more nutrient. For example, the golden rice or the zinc rice or some kind of nutrients they are going to introduce, and it's going to be entering into India very, very soon. So these kind of new agriculture are coming in, and I see the Indian agriculture going to be really facing a big threat because of these kind of, and GMOs are already there. India is already ready to clear GM mustard. I'll take 2 minutes if you want. GM mustard is already in the pipeline, and the government have set up a kind of the chief minister's committee to clear the GM mustard. And the argument is that we import so much of the edible oil from outside, so we need to clear GM mustard as soon as possible. So that and even though we have several varieties of mustard which give much more better production than the GM mustard which we are going to clear. So these new threats are there, and I see Indian small farmers, small and marginal farmers, which constitute around 80% of the Indian farming population. They are going to be under big threat, and our food culture, our food tradition are going to be under a big threat. But still, there are groups like Via Campesina, like Alliance for Sustainable and Holistic Agriculture, like GM Free India campaign. We are part of that, and we are trying to push these kind of new things which are coming into Indian agriculture. In fact, there is already some success we have achieved on the RCEP front, because RCEP was trying to introduce ISDS. ISDS is a kind of a component which gives basically a power
to the corporations to sue the country if anything goes against the interest of those corporations. It's called Investor State Dispute Settlement. So finally, this ISDS has been removed. That we have come to know. We don't have a confirmed information, but we know from 2 days back from the Malaysian, because Malaysia is also part of RCEP, that ISDS has been removed. Similarly, the seeds is going to be going to be completely privatized and completely going to the hands of the corporations, because if we accept UPOV 91 under RCEP, then all those farmers, there are hundreds and thousands of Indian farmers who are saving seeds. All those farmers and the practice of saving seeds will become criminal activity, because RCEP doesn't support saving of seeds. RCEP doesn't support, a UPOV doesn't support exchange of seeds, exchange of or gifting of seeds. It's become a criminal activity. So because we are very closely working with Via Campesina members in India, in South Asia, we also are part of the ASHA Alliance for Sustainable and Holistic Agriculture, and we are trying to push these new kind of development. We are coming in, we are opposing GM, introduction of GM in India. We have in fact informed our members from different parts of the country to oppose, to go and meet with the agriculture minister, with the chief minister, with the agriculture secretary in their states, and try to convince them not to allow their member, because chief ministers are member of a committee which is going to clear the GM in India very soon, especially the GM mustard, not to allow the GM mustard to be cleared. So Via Campesina and all other groups are in fact fighting on the road, on the ground, on the road. We are protesting. There are several protests have happened. Via Campesina members have organized several meetings on RCEP, opposing. They have written letters. They have written memorandum to Prime Minister. And in fact, interestingly, the same Prime Minister, when he was the Gujarat minister, chief minister, he has opposed RCEP. But now he is in favor of RCEP. So it is going to be a very, very difficult future for Indian agriculture in the coming days. Thank you.